This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Getting an update of the situation between Russia and Ukraine, the effects of these sanctions imposed on Russia, and how this will affect Russia's bilateral relations with numerous countries around the world. We'll also talk to him about what started all of this, and with the world being against the war, why did Russia go ahead with it? Also taking your contributions on 011-714-2006. You can drop me a tweet at Aldrin Sampear and a voice note on 0614-104-107. Ambassador, good afternoon, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ambassador, let's start off here with what was just mentioned now in the market update, and the reaction to it is the announcement from President Vladimir Putin that the nuclear forces have been put on high alert. What does this mean? Does this mean that there is a possibility of those forces being activated?
I hope that this is a non-possibility. I very much would like to hope that. But as our president said, we are ready to any kind of situations.
You're ready for any kind of situation? Does that include the activation of these nuclear weapons?
Well, this is what he said.
So is the country really willing to go that far with nuclear weapons?
Listen, we're defending our country. We use the right of self-defense in accordance with the UN Charter. We are trying to explain why, what exactly we see as threats to Russia, against which we have to protect ourselves, to fence them off. And if there is an attempt to use nuclear weapons against us, then we will respond accordingly.
Or only when there's an attempt to use the nuclear weapons against Russia will there be a response with the nuclear weapons?
Well, we, as our president once said some time ago, if anybody would like to erase Russia from the globe and have the world without Russia, then why wouldn't we need such a world without Russia?
Sure. Okay, and then on the part that you say that this is in terms of self-defense, what are you defending yourself against, and who is the offender in this case, or the aggressor?
Well, there is a number of threats, and taken together and separately, all of them are very important, very significant to Russia. First is that we want to stop the war in the east of Ukraine, where Russian-speaking minority is being persecuted, and Ukrainian regime in Kiev is conducting this war for already almost 8 years. Now, this is a lenient conflict. There is no much intense fighting, but it has been dragging on for almost 8 years, as I said, and Ukrainian army would just send a few shells and rockets and every now and then to the republics of Lugansk and Donetsk, and the civilian population would be suffering, and there were multiple victims among the civilians in Donetsk and Lugansk republics. Most of the victims that are referred to in number from 14 to 15,000, they are on the side of Donetsk and Lugansk. And people were dying almost daily in this conflict. Most of the world media, mainstream media like CNN, BBC, and others, never mentioned that. They didn't like to talk about that. And unfortunately, most of South African medias followed this pattern. But Russia and the Russians, we cannot remain indifferent, and we're very compassionate with the people who think that they are They claim to be Russian ethnically. They are being persecuted and killed for the only reason that they want to speak Russian. They want their kids to study in Russian-speaking schools. They want to watch Russian movies. They want to hear music, songs sang in Russian. They want to study Russian literature and so on. So this was the reason number one, that we wanted to stop this war. And a big attack by the Ukrainian army on these two republics seems to be imminent recently. So there was so much talk about Russia massing its army on the border with Ukraine, but again, very few like to talk about and noticed the Ukrainian army, 2/3 of Ukrainian army being massed on the other side of the dividing line between Ukraine and these two republics, at that time unrecognized in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the attack on Donetsk and Lugansk seemed to be imminent, and Russian troops there were to protect these, to actually scare off, to discourage the Ukrainian army to attack. That was reason number one. Reason number two was demilitarization and denazification, and three, denazification of Ukraine, because from 2014, Ukrainians put a lot of efforts in modernizing their army. They were helped. They received massive assistance in different areas of military buildup from NATO countries, primarily from the United States, from hardware to instructors that trained special destination forces, special operations forces in Ukraine. And this process is ongoing. And again, relatively few media wanted to talk about that. But that process was on a very high note. You know, it's been intense. Ukrainians were the first nation in Europe in terms of receiving US military assistance in these last years. And of course, NATO advancing to our borders itself, and without Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, this territory was so to speak, cultivated in military terms. Drills with NATO troops taking place every now and then, and advisors being there, some troops being there, yes, on a rotational basis, but that was becoming already to look like a permanent basis of NATO. And so we couldn't wait when military installations, especially rocket launchers, would be placed in Ukraine, and that would mean for us that our anti-missile defense is useless. That was a big threat. That was a strategic threat to Russia itself, as a flight time from the territory of Ukraine to Moscow for cruise missiles would be 7-8 minutes. That means that our anti-missile defense is useless. We couldn't wait till that threshold being breached, and that was another reason.
Mm-hmm. But
another that
sure.
ultra-nationalists and neo-fascists were so much influential in Ukraine that they, in certain areas, compelled government to act according to play according to their notes. But the last thing was that Ukrainian president said that Ukraine wanted to obtain nuclear arms. Can you imagine neo-Nazis with nuclear arms? We don't really understand what Europeans and Westerners were thinking about that. Well,
so Ambassador, is it fair then to say that in actual fact what has happened here is that Russia has used Luhansk and Donetsk in, how could I put it, Luhansk and the intervention at Luhansk and Donetsk as a scapegoat, actually, to declare war on Ukraine because of the military efforts that you're speaking about right now, and the plans that were underway, and that the threat was imminent?
We didn't declare war on Ukraine. What is going on is a limited special military operation.
But people are dying.
Yes, yes. People are dying, yes, and they have been dying for 8 years, as I said, and I don't think I heard on the SAFM talking about that, unfortunately.
Sure, but Ambassador, with people dying, with military armaments from Russia invading Ukraine, is that not a war? What do you call it? A military operation that kills?
Yes, a special military operation. Yes, this is what we call it.
With the intention to do what?
Protect people in Donetsk and Lugansk.
But you're killing
Demilitarize.
People are dying.
Okay.
Does this mean that it's only the lives of people in Luhansk and Donetsk?
We should have been keep turning the blind eye with the rest of the world, just because Ukrainians were killing people on their territory because they are Russians. You think it was okay with us? Would it be okay with anyone else?
Yeah, but Ambassador, with the conversation that we just had now and the long explanation that you gave us, I think you gave about 5 reasons. There's only one reason that you use Luhansk and Donetsk for, but the rest of the 4 is more around the military operations within Ukraine as well, and including the intention to up its military armaments.
Well, in particular, I tried to draw attention to the fact that, yes, Ukraine was militarizing at a very alarming pace, and they started talking about nuclear arms. No, this is unacceptable, and there is a certain acquiescence on the side of NATO in particular. In that, and we had to solve these problems one day or another, and the diplomacy didn't seem to work. Though we always cherish diplomatic solutions, and we always try to negotiate, but with the 2 documents that on the mutual guarantee of security that we proposed to the United States of America and to NATO separately in December last year, that was a last-minute effort to save the situation. Unfortunately, the reply to our proposals was no. We made then the very last effort. We reminded our partners that there is a principle that has been negotiated for quite some time in Europe in the OSCE framework, the principle of equal and indivisible security. And we reminded what was the negotiated essence of this principle. And it was stipulated in particular in several OSCE documents adopted at the highest level by the heads of states and governments. And we asked, so how do they interpret it, and if they are willing to follow according to this principle? The answer was no, and that left us without a choice, actually. Either there will be cruise missiles, rockets in some time in Ukraine, or we're going to put some effort and demilitarize it, and then not have this process of denazification that already took place once in human history. So again, very few media in the world wanted to show pictures and videos of torch marches by the Nazis. Very few reported that Nazi collaborators with after the Second World War, who were treated as traitors and criminals, military criminals, are now promoted to the rank of national heroes in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. And hence their internal policy vis-a-vis national minorities. We're not talking about Russians only, but there are Hungarians, Romanians, Poles, Slovaks, and these countries are also pretty much worried about their minorities.
Okay, Ambassador, because we're running out of time, just need quick answers on this one. Number one, with the Belarus negotiations taking place today, what are the conditions that Russia is putting on the table?
I'm sorry, I'm unaware of that. I only can corroborate confirm that the negotiations started in the morning, that Ukrainian delegation finally arrived to the place of negotiations. And Russian delegation had to wait for them for quite some time, as President Zelensky agreed to negotiate. Then he recalled his agreement. Then he agreed again. Obviously, he's not the one who is deciding this issue, who is the master of the situation on the Ukrainian side. This is all I can say. I'm sorry, I'm not updated.
Okay, and then just the final one is looking at the international community and how they are responding to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And I want to ask you specifically on the stance that has been taken by the South African government. First, they called it an invasion and asked for the Russian troops to withdraw. And now they're just saying that let there be negotiations. What's your take on South Africa's approach?
Well, I think that in general, people react in a way which is pretty much understandable and expected. The war is ugly. We didn't want this war either. We still consider Ukrainians, well, there is at least warlike situation. Are you a lawyer, actually?
No, I'm just listening attentively.
But people take this situation rationally, and rationally, of course, emotionally. And emotionally, everyone against the war, everyone on either side. But there is a rational explanation that we will try, that we are trying to bring to the world and to explain what and why we are doing.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. The Russian ambassador to South Africa, Ilya Igorevich Rogachev. Appreciate your time. But late for news, 2 minutes after 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, Greg.
#SAFM BTH.